Welcome everyone. We'll just kickstart today. I've started a minute early or so, we will kickstart in a second. Welcome, Brian. Welcome in.
Hey, Sam.
We'll just wait a few minutes while those of us, those who wanted to join, join, and then we'll jump into it. If you are on, just let us know in the chat. Where are you tuning in from? This is our community event where it's really just a collaborative ask us anything event. You know, that we don't actually have a set amount of content that we want to cover. It's really what are you, you know, what do you want to know? What do you want to learn about enterprise DNA? What do you want to learn about Power BI, Power Platform? What are some of the things that you're experiencing or have interest in? Yeah, we want to try and discuss all of those things in as much detail that is relevant to you as possible. And Brian, why don't we kick things off with maybe just a small update on what we've been up to at Enterprise DNA recently, some of the more recent things that we've been working on. I think maybe that would be a good place to start. I mean, one of the things that I think would be great to cover is the new course that we've got coming out on Power Query. I think that's going to be big. But other than that, yeah, we're behind the scenes. We're working on many other things, so we can go over some of those things.
Sure. So, Sam, as you mentioned, this Wednesday we've got one of our most anticipated courses rolling out. This is Melissa DeCourte's first course on Power Query and M. And it's a really interesting course because she and I were talking about it today, that it really is something that I think has a lot to offer for beginners through experts. That it's one of the rare courses that I think everybody can watch and draw something from. That it really kind of starts from the beginning in terms of going through the Power Query interface, and then really walks you through kind of the building blocks of Power Query and M. So walks through values, tables, records, lists, functions, and kind of how those all tie together. And if you're a beginner, I think it gives a really good introduction to what's going on behind the scenes of the user interface, kind of how Power Query thinks about data, how it processes transformations. And if you're a more advanced user, it really gives you, I think, a firm foundation on starting to build your own custom M functions and doing some work in M, where it really gives you a solid grounding on basically how to pull all this together. And so a number of us have been through the course kind of ahead of time, and I think even those of us who consider ourselves fairly advanced in Power Query have found we've learned a lot just by going through start to finish. And so, as I say, I think it's something that offers a lot for everybody. It's the first in a series that she's going to be doing, but I think it really stands alone as a valuable addition to our overall coursework. So really looking forward to rolling that one out and getting people's reaction to that. Did you have something, Sam, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what you mentioned is how important Power Query is to development inside of Power BI. I think that there's a bit of and we've discussed this, there's a bit of an obsession around DAX formulas, just because that's what a lot of the content is out there online, and that is where some of the leaders in Power BI have really invested all of their expertise. But the reality is that Power Query is such a huge part, and M code is such a huge part of building a solid foundation to your reports. And if you implement it well, and that is what this course is all about, you can simplify so much of what you do post the querying and transforming part of your analysis. And that's why we are now placed, you know, we've partnered with Melissa, one of the global experts in this, and we are making it a far more prominent part of our educational content because of the increased importance, I feel, of this particular part of Power BI development.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we were talking the other day among a number of us about whether, if you had the choice, would you rather be great at Power Query or great at DAX? And I think unanimously we were in agreement that the answer is Power Query, because if you're great at Power Query, you don't have to be great at DAX. That it, as you say, it simplifies so much of what you do from a DAX standpoint. And in many cases, you end up not having to write any DAX at all. And it speeds your model. I think it makes the model easier to understand from a third-party user.
Mm-hmm.
Just in general, kind of, we've talked about, pushing upstream as much as possible. And this really gives a good foundation for how to do that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's an exciting addition, and it's the first of much more great content, hopefully from Melissa. She spent a lot of time putting this one course together, so we're not going to put too much pressure on her to do any more likely in the next few months. But I know that I think we're both of the view that it's going to be a very popular course, and the content is of that higher quality that there's going to be a lot of calls to get more content from Melissa in the very near future. No doubt about that. One of the other things I wanted to mention is in behind the scenes, we've been working very hard with our developers internally to just improve the navigation experience around our content. So a lot of you who are members or who have access to our learning center may have noticed that our content is increasing at an exponential rate. We're adding a lot more content, and we're going to continue to. We are evolving heavily into the Power Platform, and we're trying to do it as quickly as possible. So that means a lot more content is going to come into the Learning Center. And so all we're trying to do is just make sure with that increase in content, we're still making the experience as seamless, as intuitive as possible, and as seamless as possible for our users. And so all we've done, it actually took a bit to actually get this working, but we've added some simple navigation icons. And so what you can do is if you want to dive into just Power BI, you can click on Power BI, and then all of your Power BI modules are going to come up. Same with Power Apps. And obviously, it's a slow start here. We're just getting started here. We're going to expand quite rapidly with these particular technologies, but in the future, these are going to be built up, and you can quickly dive to that content. And we're also going to, we're thinking outside the box in terms of the content that we can also provide here. We want to be across all of the key Microsoft technologies. So, look for this to expand as well. And as you know, we have a range of different types of course structures. And so we've got structured courses, which you can click on, mini-series, our events, resources, and then our learning map and content search as well. So this is a nice addition, and it works really well with our central platform access portals. So, many of you know we brought these in a few months ago, and so we have a membership portal and we have a COE portal. It's just taking a little while to open up. It always does when I'm live streaming, but it works in well with this. But also watch out for some updates on this particular area coming soon as well. We're looking to update this and make this more comprehensive and interesting as well. Now, we've got a few of you on the call, but I haven't heard from you. This is a collaborative. We try these community events are as collaborative as we can make them. So you've got Brian and I here on the call. We want to hear from you. If you've got any questions on what you're seeing in Power BI, what you're seeing with Enterprise DNA, or just any questions in general, just please shout out. We want to make these collaborative. If we don't make it collaborative, these usually don't last very long. So that is how we like to run these. Brian, anything interesting that you've seen happening on the Power BI front, sure, from Microsoft or things that are happening within the Power Platform? Anything that's come out of late that's really interested you?
I mean, the thing that's really kind of knocked my socks off lately is Tabular Editor 3. Mm-hmm. I've talked at length on YouTube about that. It just I think one of the huge weaknesses in Power BI since really the start has been the DAX editor.
Mm-hmm.
And the way in which this is taken and just completely revolutionized the way that editor function works, and combined it with the ability to do DAX queries, to be able to trace your virtual tables, to do some advanced scripting, to automate things. That has been for me kind of the big innovation in Power BI this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that's influenced my development probably to the greatest extent. But I think
give some example, like, can you give some more sort of solid examples of how it's, say, saving you time or optimizing your experience or improving your models? Can you give us some, give the me as well, because I honestly have not used Tabular Editor extensively at all. I've opened it up because I know that you got a license for me, but I haven't actually used it extensively. So I'd love to know a little bit more detail, some of the wins that you've had by using it.
Yeah, let me actually pop open a model, and I can show you what I've been doing with it. If you just give me a minute, let me find one that's a good example.
Sure. So I'm just here on the Tabular Editor website. So to me, it looks like from the outside looking in, it looks like quite a heavy developer type tool. So my concern is that not a huge amount of just general Power BI users would look to use it just because it just looks so heavy and sort of difficult. And some of the wording around it is a little bit technical. Like I'm looking at a fully fledged IDE. Like I don't even know what an IDE is. So that would be my only concern. But I think that if there is value here and we can actually showcase the productivity gains, etc., we definitely should.
And I think it's one of those things where you can kind of use as much or little of it as you feel comfortable with at the time. I kind of started off just using the DAX editor,
mm-hmm.
and I've kind of expanded into kind of some of the more advanced features, and I'm just trying to locate a good teaching example here. Wasn't quite prepared for this, but
that's right.
Just hang on, but yeah, you can kind of start slow with it, mm-hmm. and then kind of build up as you go. Sorry, I'm just having trouble locating the file I need.
That's right. No troubles.
Maybe Sam, do you want to talk about the challenge we've got ongoing, and I'll dig up.
That's a good idea.
Dig up the example.
Sure. So I'm just going to navigate to the forum here. So the forum is our support and community area for Enterprise DNA, and you'll always see here us promoting our latest initiatives. And so we've got two major initiatives that we are running now. One is called the Power BI Accelerator, which we've just kickstarted. Brian's leading that. And we also have our, this used to be called Problem of the Week, and we've evolved it to the Power BI Accelerator. We've changed around some of the scenarios we're working on, so we can maybe go into that a little bit as well. But we also have the Power BI challenges. And so I created a video on this yesterday. It's actually up on YouTube if you want to have a look at it. But we've made a few changes to the challenges as well. One of the biggest things, we've made it a lot simpler and easier to get involved. My expectation is that it's probably around a 2 to 3 hour amount of time that you need to dedicate, and you'll be able to create something quite compelling. And so, we're expecting the number of collaborators within the challenges to be a lot bigger from now on. We sort of had a bit of a drop, and this is an amazing opportunity to work on a real world project that can really enhance your problem solving skills and design and creativity around Power BI. In terms of the one that we've got coming up, you can actually easily find the challenges here. You go just Power BI challenges if you want. Usually it's one of the more popular threads, so it's always up the top here somewhere. So I'm just going to click on it, and basically this one is all about. So we've got some ambulance data. That's what this particular challenge is all about. So understanding things like when calls came in to dispatch time, how long it took to get to the patient, how long it took for the patient to get to the hospital, and a few other things. And so it's actually a really good scenario. And the model is all the data is set up so that there isn't a huge amount of transformations that you can do unless you want to get creative inside the query editor. But what I'm also thinking of doing is that probably the hardest thing about this particular challenge is dealing with actual time. So dealing with hours, minutes, and seconds. And so really just solving for that is the hardest thing. And then obviously, once you do that, you can build your model, build your some relatively straightforward DAX and create some visualizations off the back of it. One of the additional things that I think we might do to make it even easier is that I might actually work through this later today and build the model up completely almost. So do a lot of the transformations that would be required just because we want to make it super easy for anyone to jump in and get involved. So the end date is the 11th of July and anyone can participate. So anyone, whether you're a member or a non-member, you can participate and get involved. And we have some prizes. I think we're giving out free memberships that you can use yourself or you can allocate to someone else. And there's a bit of street cred as well that we give as well around promoting you on social media, so on and so forth. So that is that one. That is that. Have you got? Should I throw back to you, Brian, or not?
Yeah. Let me.
We do have a question. We do have a question that we can answer.
Oh, sure.
What do you recommend for balancing performance issues with DAX and slow refresh rates in Power Query? I'll try and answer this first. I think that in general, when you're getting really poor performance, it's one of either two things. I think first of all, you're probably bringing in too much data into your report, and what you need to think more deeply about is breaking out your data sets maybe into different reports or just optimizing them like crazy and creating them in different reports and then maybe collating them later on in a Power BI app. That is I think one big easy way to solve this. Too many people are trying to basically create one model, one report for all of their data. And look, it just doesn't make sense. You need to think about what is going to perform the best inside of Power BI, and sometimes reducing your data sets and analyzing segments of your data in separate reports is a better idea. And then bringing them back together in your Power BI app in the online service. The other thing is usually you get really slow DAX when you're writing really complex DAX because your tables are not optimized and your model is not optimized. So the reality is you need to just get a lot more across how to optimize your tables and your data model for Power BI. And then your DAX can be a lot simpler. It's something that we explained earlier with Melissa's course on Power Query. It's about knowing the extent to which you can really optimize your tables and your model. It can simplify so many things around your DAX formulas. And this is one of the things that Brian and I have really started to agree on recently, is that there's just this obsession with DAX. Everyone thinks that DAX will just solve everything, but that is purely and I'll be honest here, all of my initial content through Enterprise DNA was all about DAX formulas and the amazing things you could do with DAX formulas. But the reality is that you can really simplify that area of your development if you do a lot more optimization before you get to that point. So hopefully that was helpful. Anything you want to add there, Brian?
No, I think that covers it well.
Cool. Now, do you want to share your screen or not?
Yeah. Let me. Okay, so this is just a random one I pulled up. This was a forum problem about average days between excluding certain types of dates where a patient canceled or no showed. And I can just show you that when you jump into Tabular Editor on this, what it does, it gives you in here what they call the Tabular Object Model Explorer. It gives you basically all the components of your Power BI report together. You've got your tables, you've got shared expressions, you've got your data sources, and you can go through. So for example, in your tables, you can preview these, preview data, take a look at what's in there. In your measures, you can go through in the expression editor and take a look through all your measures. And then for the one here, the days between, if you go along here, it's actually got a better version of IntelliSense even than the native Power BI. So if you browse down here, it'll tell you, for a table, what the components of that table are, 7 columns, the different types of columns here. If you look here for your variables, it'll tell you these are scalars. In this case, this is a table variable. For each of the functions, you can go through, and if you need to, you can right click and go right to the documentation for those. And then one of the things that I find most useful in this is being able to take, and where you've got, let's say, a virtual table like this, you can just take this and copy it, and you've got a DAX query function available right here, where you can just jump into a new DAX query, paste that in, and then just type evaluate. And what it'll do right here is it'll evaluate the value of that virtual table.
Wow, that's huge. That is huge. That is actually really powerful for virtual tables, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredibly valuable for debugging.
Yeah.
If you're going through and all of a sudden, I think there are a lot of times where you'll go through and you'll have a virtual table that all of a sudden will throw a blank, and you'll be working through and you'll get nothing in your measure, and you'll realize, okay, for some reason, it's not putting any rows in this virtual table. Why is that? And what you can do is you can go through and you can deconstruct all this. And then what you can even do here is you can take out this part and take this into another, take this into another DAX query.
And quick question, like, is are changes you make here automatically placed into your Power BI model as well?
Not automatically. What's nice is you can kind of work through this and decide what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. So what you can do is you can kind of query around in these things, and then when you want to save it back to your model, you just hit Control S and it copies it back. So you can play around, you can debug, and then if you get to a point where you've kind of messed things up, you can just discard it.
Right.
So what you can do here is, what I had is you can, I had the whole add columns. You can take this, though, the summarized portion out into a separate DAX query. And run that. Sorry, I've kind of got the windows messed up here.
So it's great for debugging. It's great for auditing. It's great for bulk making updates, etc. What are some of the other things that sort of just like high level things that you think are great about this tool?
Well, one of the things that's really nice is that it's got some really excellent macro capabilities. And so what you can do here, and let me just hang on one sec. I've got the windows messed up here. So let me just close this down real quick and just start over. One of the things that you can do is you can script out a lot of repetitive functions. So for example, what you can do is if you've got a lot of measures in a report, just with 2 clicks, you can automatically format all the measures in the report. Another thing is that one of the things I find most annoying is that you've got numeric fields that'll aggregate. So for example, if you've got index fields or ID fields, that when you drop them into a table will aggregate. And what you can do is you can take those and basically disaggregate all of those and put no summarization. I'm sorry here, Sam.
That's okay. No, that's right. That's right. There's no
kind of messed up
we're doing things on the fly here, so it's never.
Oh, here we go. I'm sorry. It's macros.
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can format all the measures in your model.
So is this a macro that you created? You actually created this?
Yeah. This is one that I created. There are also a bunch of them that are available online.
Yeah.
So you can remove unused columns. You can here set all your summaries to none.
Yeah. Wow. So there's almost like you can have a whole range of best practices, and then you can automatically run these macros on your data, and then that automatically updates the Power BI model in the background.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really really valuable is there's a best practice analyzer in here.
Yeah.
And it'll actually run through. It'll run through and I can, if you want, I can pull that up in Analyst Hub.
Well, I think what we'll do, we'll move on, because I think this is more like for a video itself, like, and we've got a couple of questions coming in here, so we can, and I know you've actually done a recent video on this on the channel, so
done a couple.
Yeah, so definitely check those out if you want to learn a little bit more about Tabular Editor, and I would dare say because of the functionality, we might actually add a course about it in the near future. Okay, a couple of questions.
We've got plans to do that.
Yeah, super stuff. So here's an interesting one. I don't actually know the answer to this, but what's the best approach for handling raw JSON data from an API in Power BI? Initial API request returns a link to the actual data, and it takes a lot of time for the transformations to occur. I honestly don't know the answer to a good recommendation for this. I haven't dealt with this enough. Do you have anything, Brian? Something to do with APIs, basically.
I don't. I've not had a lot of luck with building custom connectors in with APIs. So we've been relying pretty heavily on commercial pipeline services to do that sort of handling for us.
I think my recommendation here, honestly, is to get the data into something else. Get into Excel, get it into some sort of database, and then request it from there. If you're having a lot of issues with sort of these API connectors, like I would just think of a different pipeline to actually get the data into Power BI. And because I think APIs as well, I mean, there's probably just like a whole lot of data you don't even need. like that is probably the case, right? So you're bringing in a huge amount of information that just isn't required, and that's taking up a whole lot of time in the transformation editor, cleaning it up, etc. So, I would just like really have a think about the pipeline deeply and change up how that data ultimately gets into Power BI. Maybe you just do some cleanups before it actually gets into the query editor. Here's a good one for you, Brian. What are some strategies to create a good data model for Power BI?
When I work on data modeling, I always start from the assumption that the end result is going to be a star schema. And so if you start with that answer in mind, it really helps in terms of deciding kind of what your dimensions are, what your fact tables are, which tables you can denormalize together, particularly if you're looking to have slicers that sync together. So which ones of those dimensions may fit together in a way that allow those slicers to operate in tandem, but always kind of with the idea in mind that you want to end up with as close to a classic star schema as possible. So kind of working from the answer backward is the way I tend to do it. And I think the other thing is not to be afraid of denormalization. That I think sometimes folks are concerned about combining dimension tables, and there's nothing wrong with that. Power BI handles through the Vertipack engine handles that compression really well. So, although it'll cause some duplication, it'll blow the size of your model up a little bit. It doesn't tend to have a big impact on speed, and it has, I think, a lot of benefits in terms of usability and transparency of the model to other users.
My adds to that are, well, first of all, definitely check out a few courses that we have on our in our learning center. So first of all, I would go through the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Power BI. Data modeling is covered briefly here. Then if you really want to dive into just data modeling in general, and how to create as optimized as possible as you get a little bit more complex in your data sets, then you want to check out this one, Data Transformations and Modeling. And then ultimately, also probably Melissa's course that we're bringing out this week. But this is a really comprehensive course, about 3 to 4 hours just on data modeling and how to optimize your data within the query editor. They both work sort of hand in hand. So I really recommend that. My sort of last tips for data modeling is you want to try and make it as intuitive as possible, so that when you are actually writing formulas and creating visualizations, you can almost visualize in your mind what the model looks like. Like if you have this spaghetti of relationships and you have so many tables that it's hard to actually know what is going on, with your filters and your relationships, etc., then it's going to be very, very difficult for you to create any insights of value, or just to keep across everything that you're doing from an analysis point of view. So it's just got to be as intuitive as possible, and that's what you should always try and aim for. So we've got another question here, Brian. I'm new to Power BI and I've started the Power BI videos. What path would open up career opportunities? Whether this path, well, I mean, it goes without saying, I think absolutely. I mean, to me, Power BI gives you superpowers, and not only Power BI, but the Power Platform is just becoming so significant. The value that you can create by learning and implementing these tools is just out of this world. And it was 5 years ago when I started Enterprise DNA, and it is even more so now. I mean, it is just unbelievable the gains that you can have from data management across the board. From collecting data to managing data through pipelines, to analyzing data, to creating automations off the back of insights. When you start combining Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and then some of the other tools that are getting added in on a very regular basis, it is unbelievable. unbelievable what you can do. So, you know, you can very quickly become an incredibly valuable asset if you master Power BI and the Power Platform. There's no doubt in my mind about that.
Yeah, I think, you know, just to look at the job boards. I mean, I'm in Washington, D.C., and just the other day, you know, I looked on Indeed, and there's like 2,000 postings for Power BI developers. You know, and I think, as Sam said, when you then factor in knowledge of Power Platform, that there's a huge demand for Power BI skills, and then when you layer on top of that the percentage of those people who also have really good knowledge of building enterprise apps in, you know, Power Apps and Power Automate, you become incredibly valuable. The demand right now so outstrips the supply that I think, you know, in a relatively short period of time with some intensive study, you can really improve your career prospects pretty dramatically.
I almost have no doubt at this point in time that Power BI and the Power Platform is going to become as big as, say, Excel, maybe even bigger. It's taking a little bit longer than I thought, but I feel like Microsoft are going to monopolize this space. I think that the tools that they have, and in combination with the Office 365 platform, are just going to be so everywhere. They're just going to be so in every organization that these skills are going to be so valuable. You know, and we're still at very early days. I mean, I heard today that Microsoft just hit $2 trillion in market value, and that is off the back of what they're doing from enterprise, from an enterprise space. They're just cutting deals with the biggest companies in the world, and they're cutting deals around Azure. But off the back of that, they are saying, well, you can have licenses for Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate. They have the most compelling selling proposition to all organizations out there. And I don't think anyone can compete, and they won't be able to compete long term. And so if you are seen as an expert in these particular tools, you are going to have plenty of opportunities for a very long time. That I've almost got no doubt in my mind.
I mean, I think it's interesting if you follow the Gartner Magic Quadrant over the last few years, the distance between Microsoft and everybody else just keeps increasing every year.
Yep. And it's just going to continue, I feel. You know, I hear things in the background, and, you know, I actually talk to a lot of enterprise customers in the analytics space, because we deal with them through Enterprise DNA and via our Center of Excellence offering. We're partnered with some really large organizations around the world, and most of them historically had either Tableau or ClickView, and they're moving to Power BI because of, one, the functionality, two, the cost, three, the integration into what they already have, and so on and so forth. There's like probably 10 different reasons. And yeah, this is just going to be the same for everyone, unless something totally out of left field changes from a competitor, etc. Microsoft, whether it's unfortunate or fortunately, are really just taking over this space, and these skills are just going to become, you know, incredibly valuable. So it looks like we've got a lot of people agree with us, Brian. So I'm glad we're not the only ones that think this way. But this is also why, you know, with Enterprise DNA, I have always had a Microsoft focus. There was many times where I had requests, or can you do Tableau? Can you do this technology? And I've always, in the back of my mind, been quite solid in the view that I believe Microsoft are going to take over this space. I feel like the tools are just better, and they've only got better over time. And I also feel like the maturity of the Power Platform is getting to a point where things are so compelling with combining these tools, and that's why we're evolving our content and our resources and our focus to the entire Power Platform now. And we're gonna move very quickly on this. Okay, any more questions? Because we might wrap up. Unless you want to maybe talk about the accelerator, Brian. Do you want to go into the accelerator? I can navigate on my screen, and you can just talk about it.
Yeah. So, accelerator, as Sam mentioned, was kind of an outgrowth of problem of the week, and we've been doing a lot of internal analytics. And one of the things we realized is problem of the week, we were probably shooting outside the norm of our membership. You know, the problems were getting quite advanced, and we were getting fairly low participation. We had kind of a small but loyal group in that. And what we've decided to do is kind of take what was working well in problem of the week, but scale it down, really to focus primarily on folks kind of early in their Power BI journey. Make it so that it's not onerous, you know, that for like an hour a week, you can do the problem set, you can participate in the live session that we'll be doing. But one of the experiences I think most of us have is we watch videos, and in some sense, the better the video is, the more you convince yourself that, yeah, okay, I get that. I know how to do that. And then I think we've all had the experience where you then sit down in front of the computer and say, I don't know what I'm doing. And really, in order to kind of make the link between theory and practice, you really need to have some sort of structured practice habit. And what we're trying to do with Power BI Accelerator is to do kind of expert guided practice that makes that link between what you learn in the videos and what you do practically in your own development. And so what we're doing is we're structuring it so that it's paralleling the Ultimate Beginner's Guide roughly, that we're kind of taking each week some basic concepts from the Ultimate Beginner's Guide and kind of advancing along those. And we just started, this is the first week. And so, you know, this one really focuses primarily on the idea of context and how much you can do just by leveraging context. That we've got a sample report, and we've got a scenario where you've got the chance to acquire a competitor, and you've got to put together a report quickly. And it's a report that, you know, really provides some useful insight, but that a beginner can develop within an hour. And the whole thing is done in 2 lines of DAX, but requires some understanding of context. So what we want to do in this is to kind of have a community of practice around this, where you have ability to reach out to the experts if you have questions, if you have problems, but also to have the community talk amongst themselves. And that's really what's happened in this first week. Is we've gotten a lot of conversation going on the forum between participants about approaches they've taken, about questions they have. And what we're finding is that everybody is kind of tailoring the example to meet their needs. So the real beginners are taking the example kind of as is. The more advanced users are really throwing some additional flair and putting some additional work in to make it a bit more challenging from their standpoint. And that's great. You know, that's exactly what we want to have happen here. And so Sam actually last night, you know, put together his version of this, and in real time kind of put a new spin on the overall problem. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be every other week, we're going to be putting out a new problem. And then in the in-between weeks, we're going to be doing a live session where, you know, Sam and I, or, you know, another group of experts will walk through the problem. We'll take questions, we'll discuss concepts, and then hear from you about what are some of the challenges you have in your development, and try to use that input to focus future problems. So it's really kind of an ongoing structured practice session for people, not necessarily just at the beginner level, but kind of beginner through that low intermediate level.
Nice. Yeah, I love this new initiative, and it's so achievable, and so anyone can get involved in this, and it's just brilliant. You know, these initiatives are all about we want project-based problem solving scenarios where you can really improve just your general analytics abilities, your analytics skills. And this is a a fantastic start. And I look forward to getting involved in more of these. I myself maybe took 20 minutes to half an hour to sort of just walk through the problem as I was talking, because I actually recorded myself actually doing it. So there's no reason why not anyone could take 20 minutes to half an hour to work through that solution, and you'll learn a lot just from a just ways you approach things, way you think about things from a Power BI perspective. You'll really start to think more deeply about how to solve things, which is a whole reason why we've sort of reinvented what we're doing with the Power BI Accelerator. So Kendall, oh yep, we know. If I remember last time, you are certainly looking forward to the M course. Yep, so that's coming out this week, Kendall. Sorry, I initially thought it was coming out last Friday, but it looks like we're releasing it in the coming days. So yeah, this is going to be huge. We've recorded a video with Melissa introducing the course, so that should be up on our YouTube channel very soon.
Yeah, it's coming out Wednesday.
Okay.
Question, Sam, we had a question about Python.
Well, I answered that in the chat.
Okay.
But basically, is Python the Power Platform? So the answer is really no. But we've got a few questions coming in, so that's good. Let's have a quick look. So I'll just bring this in front of me here. When is machine learning going to be available? Also, remember R programming. Yep. So these are coming up very soon. So let me share my screen again, and I'll show you. So within so if you've got access to the platform, either in membership or COE, you jump into here, and you'll see upcoming courses up the top here, right? And so all of the details about what's coming up are contained within this page, and we're constantly updating this page with everything that's new. So you'll see here that Melissa's course is coming out very soon. Just let this update a little bit. So that one's coming out very soon, but then you see all of these courses here. So July, we don't actually have anything coming out, but I think we will. I think I might actually bring forward one of my courses. Then we have, oh, actually, it's here. It's actually here. We can probably get rid of that. So we've got Power BI deployment, planning, strategy, and governance. We've got R coming out in August, hopefully. So that one is what Brian is focused on. We've got Power Automate one maybe coming out as well. A Power Automate desktop. So this is a tool that I've started using myself a lot, and it's actually quite amazing. It is actually really amazing what you can do and the potential of what you can do. I think I'm honestly only scratching the surface. So I really want to get a course out on that, and then hopefully in September is when we'll have our machine learning course. So I
have some news on that one, Sam. I just spoke with Brad about machine learning, and he is going to be focused very heavily on that in the next few weeks. And so we may actually be moving that one earlier and swapping that one out with the R course time-wise.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so next quarter it looks like we will have these two courses for you, and then yeah, we're definitely going to look to expand where it makes sense on this sort of content, depending on the popularity, etc. So okay, so another question here is, I like the new member initiatives. Is there a cost for these? Well, all you got to do is join up to Enterprise DNA. So we have two options to join up to Enterprise DNA. All you got to do is come to our website and you'll see them. So we have an option for individuals and for teams. Our individuals option is membership. So and one other thing is, if you aren't signed up, if you haven't joined us yet, we're having a half-year sale for the next couple of days. So there's an awesome opportunity to get in at a really good discount for a very short time. But membership, everything is included. So all of these initiatives we run, it's all part of membership, and also Center of Excellence is what we have for teams. This is a more tailored offering for organizations with multiple users. Okay. Just as we're about to round off, Brian, the questions are coming thick and fast.
Good. Keep them coming.
Okay, so Keith didn't feel overwhelmed with the Power BI accelerator. So that's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly where we want to place things. With some, even with like, I want to make all of the things we do more achievable. That's the whole, that's a big move for me. A big, new thing that I want to make happen. The accelerator is going to be more achievable. Also, the challenges are going to be far more achievable going forward. So we want more participation. We want more of our members to become engaged in what we're doing, and also get a lot of benefit and a learning experience from these.
Questions? Actually, if I can on that one, Sam, I just want to shout out a few members on that one. For the accelerator, we had a really great volunteer advisory team. So Guy Johnson, Eric Malloy, and Kim Cook, all members of Enterprise DNA, have been working with me, as well as Uda Chatterjee. And what we've been doing is trying to make sure they've been doing the problems in advance and trying to make sure that they're taking no more than an hour. And we're really trying to keep those to a reasonable scope. And so, sometimes I can get a little over enthusiastic in putting these together. And they've been doing a great job telling me, kind of, here's something that may be confusing. Here's something we may want to offer some more explanation on, and really trying to keep those at a reasonable scale and make it as beneficial as possible without it being onerous to anybody. So I think, we're learning as we go. And I think, even some of that, that same approach we could potentially use on the challenges.
Yep, definitely. That's 100% what I want to do. So a question here, do we have any real world examples on financial reporting connecting to SAP and TM1? So we do have a financial reporting course. I presume you've probably already seen it and maybe have gone through it, but we don't have anything that is specifically catered towards connecting to SAP or TM1. I've had experience with TM1 in a client engagement that I did. I know what it is, but no, we don't. I guess the one thing is, from a education platform point of view, is that like we have to keep somewhat generic because that is a very niche use case, right? And so initially, we've had to keep relatively generic in terms of the content that we've curated and tried to cover as many different use cases as possible. And the thing with Power BI, a lot of the techniques are reusable, right? So we really focus on the techniques that we think can be reused in any real world situation. One of the initiatives that I'm really considering, and this is in terms of like for our content growth, is actually to niche down a little bit. So where we might actually start diving into these things. We might start creating short courses on these real world situations. They won't be long, but they'll just be things that we can create quite quickly, which cover off a lot of these use cases. So I'm thinking of things like a series of like functional labs or industry labs or enterprise app creation. So that's sort of like my high level segmentation of what I think we could dive into with some short courses. And so, and we might even actually like throw out to our community to submit data sets or submit situations. And I myself could create short courses basically on the fly. So that is one consideration that I'm really making at the moment, to try and build out a lot more content and also cover a lot of these unique use cases. So another question here is, can Power Automate be used in place of VBA? Theoretically, yes. But I think, if you're still heavily using Excel, like VBA is probably going to be still a more superior, coding language and way to automate Excel. But Power Automate is going to be a lot more useful for automation around the cloud, right? So VBA automates Excel, but Power Automate automates the cloud. And if you're starting to use things like Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, and some of the other tools that are coming out in functionality, well, then Power Automate is what is going to connect all of those things. It's going to be able to automate things off the back end of that. Now, this is an interesting quick question here. Love the platform, but getting a bit lost. Okay, so yes, I'm the first to admit that this can happen. And we've been trying our absolute best to try and improve this as quickly as possible, because what is also happening is that as we produce more content, I can see our content being 2, 3, 4 times larger than what it is even now. And so we're doing everything we can to try and simplify it. Well, not simplify, but just improve the navigation experience, or customize the navigation experience depending on who you are, what your skill level is, etc. So if I just jump to here, so even some of our more recent enhancements. So that's what this navigation experience was and trying to enable, as well as trying to simplify things just from a navigation experience in the Learning Center. But the other thing I want to make sure that you're aware of is our custom learning map. So this is actually a resource that Brian and myself worked on together, and is basically a recommendation system for how to work through the content on our platform. And I've got lots of ideas of how we can expand this and make this better, because what it should include is actually the entirety of our learning experience, not just content. So somehow we need to integrate our resources, our initiatives in here as well. But at the moment, what you can do is you can get a recommendation on what to work through. So say, for instance, you're an intermediate user. So this is just one way that you can use it. And you want to focus on, say, DAX formulas. You can make these selections. You get a bit of a idea of how long it will take to work, like highlights of what the path is going to be. And then you can go discover your path, and then the recommendation system will throw up what we think you should work through and the order in which you should work through it. So we think you should go to mastering DAX, DAX formula patterns, DAX formula deep dives, right? And then one of the great things you can do is you can actually dive into every single video in a particular course in this particular application. You can go mastering, you can select mastering DAX and then drill down into each individual video and really dive into the content that way. Okay, so I really recommend diving into this. It's in both the membership and the COE portal. So check out Custom Learning Map, and also watch out for many updates on this in the very near future. I think there's a lot of additional great functionality we can add to this. One of the other things that I thought would be huge is, and this is a request that came directly from one of our partners, one of our large organizations that we partner with through the Center of Excellence, is how to. We want to add a learning path around how to pass the Microsoft certification. And so that is one thing that we might look to add to there as well. Okay, we're going to round things off here. Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Brian, for jumping on.
Thanks, Sam.
Cool. Okay, so thanks all. I'm just staring at my screen here. Cool. Okay, so there are a lot of inventory and supply chain management, Kendall, in our showcases. So check those out. And we had a challenge solely on inventory data. So there's a range of examples. So okay, let's round it off. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks everybody for your questions. Big help here with your interested in.
Okay, talk to you soon.